Tribulation time. We're in the 8th chapter of Revelation, and this is where the trumpets are sounded. At least that's where they start. And if you remember, we looked at the first two trumpet sounds last week. The first one is in verse 7 of the 8th chapter, and where it says it sounded, and hail and fire mingled with blood was cast on the earth, and the trees and the grass were burned up. That is so disturbing. I'm again want to say it. I don't know whether I put it in terms you're going to say it. The first, during this time of the tribulation, things are so bad it's beyond, I think, the ability of John to understand and write down, even instructed by the angels, the severity and the hurt and pain that's going to exist during this period of time. So he has a number of visions that are given him that just shows something beyond our comprehension, something we've never seen before, never experienced. And for instance, it talks here about the hail coming, but folks, what it talks about here is not the kind of hailstorm we have periodically around here. Somebody said it sleeted and all last night. I didn't know that till morning, but they said it did come a pretty good sleet last night. But anyway, that we're not talking about that something that simple. It talks about hail and fire mingle with blood coming down. Now, as I mentioned, and I will again emphasize, I just can't help give my own personal observation of this, that this, and you look at it as we go through it, this is seemingly a picture of a nuclear war taking place, because all of these strange things that are being shown could reflect some kind of nuclear result of some of the things that have happened if there's a war going on like that. So keep that in mind. I mean, I don't know, again, whether the blood, and I emphasize this again, that whether it's blood like we would just have human blood, or whether, blood is often, we use the term blood red. A lot of it might be the idea of some sort of chemical change in the waters and such as that to make it look like blood, but it was something different from the normal water, and it had a chemical change that people, animals, nothing, fish, nothing could survive what it has, and it speaks of it. So I just remind you of the 7 trumpets that are being sounded. The first one has to do with hail, but not like we've seen. I say hail and fire and blood coming down. Of course, many think this could be a tornado. It could have been, in terms of just severity of it, a volcano and such as this taking place. So keep that in mind. But the nuclear war could destroy a lot of people in something like this. All right, in verses 8 and 9, it talks about the second trumpet. We looked at that, where it says that it sounded, and a great mountain filled with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures that were in the sea had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. The idea again, something taking place. Many think that this could possibly be a volcano or a fiery mountain. The picture is just so beyond our comprehension that you take it talks in terms of a third of the sea became blood, or became red, had some sort of chemical change to it that made it such an awful thing. And I mentioned last week, I think, to you, to the effect that one of the things that came to my mind is the idea of a third of the fish of the sea killed. Do you imagine what that is? We're talking about millions of tons. I mean, the sea is full of all kinds of creatures, and even if you think in terms of the whales and porpoises and all that, but you got just millions and millions and millions of fish. Can you imagine when all of these things die and they rise to the surface and start rotting and stinking? Woo! Can you imagine what kind of, what it will be like? I mean, that stench would be all over the world, not just in the area that it happened. But that is something so severe that this kind of judgment comes upon the earth at this time. All right, let's move into the third trumpet, which we haven't studied as yet, and it's verses 10 and 11. It says, "And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many people died of the waters because they were made bitter." Which I know a lot of people are so interested. I don't know why, and in reading, no specific understanding of why they call it wormwood, except for the fact that wormwood was actually a type of plant that existed back in that days that was very bitter and poisonous. And I'm not sure exactly. I think that where that grew around water or something, that water you couldn't be too bitter to even drink or anything. And again, if you drank enough of it, if you drank actual, boiled some wormwood, I don't know, they were small type plants. I don't know exactly. It might even be called a weed. I'm not sure of what I can read. But if you boiled it, it would actually become poison that you could not detect. And this is what it's saying here, that this meteor is the way it refers to it, something, a great star from heaven. And if we think of it in terms of literal, then as I looked at last week, God did it before in Egypt. He could do it here for sure. But if it were a large meteor that came and landed upon some source of water, and all of those rivers, it speaks of the three rivers being poisoned as a result of that. Now, again, to me, it looks, that would be a very vivid and understandable result of a nuclear war, where one of the nuclear bombs could land at the head of where these rivers came together, and the radiation and the poison from the nuclear bomb itself could poison those waters, and could, as it flowed downstream, could just really do a lot. It speaks in terms of how it, a third part of the rivers and the waters, it would have been a terrible, terrible thing. Well, I don't get into it too much here because understand, but the idea of millions of people literally could starve to death either by poisoning or because they had no water to drink. You got to realize it's not quite like now. I doubt that the United States would be sending rescue planes to deliver water and everything to that area like they would today, and some of the other countries. I mean, everybody, I would think, during the tribulation time is going to be on their own. I don't think you're going to have one nation helping another. In fact, we've already been looking at the fact there's probably going to be a war going on, people killing one another, nation against nation, so you wouldn't get any help. So people that lived in the area where this wormwood took place and poisoned the waters and such, that they wouldn't receive any help from other sources probably, so it would have been a very bitter kind of end.
That would probably poison the farmlands,
right,
and the food, the cattle, everything.
Everything. You're talking about, yes, you could not raise crops with that kind of water, be pulse type water. The animals could not drink it. It would really be a, and I say, I don't think it would be logical to think in terms of delivering water in, because that, with the condition of the world and airplanes such as that, it's not likely that you'd see anything like that going on. Would it be something to read a newspaper during that period of time? See how the newspaper interpreted. It'd be neat. Or some of these, I guess CNN would have a ball, wouldn't it?
Yes, indeed.
It wasn't true, didn't make it up anyway.
That's right.
All right. Yeah, I think a lot of things are gonna be destroyed in this tribulation time, but, CNN might make it through it. Okay, let's look at the fourth trumpet, and that's found in the 12th verse. And the fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. This is kind of strange. You think, well, it's no big deal, because there'd just be a little darkness. It talks in terms of the actual sun, stars, and all, the moon, all be darkened, but it also talks in terms of a third of the day would be included in that darkness. In other words, if you had a light amount of a small amount of light, it would only be for 8 hours of the day. It means at least 16 hours a day it would be dark on the church. Now, maybe that doesn't sound too much, just having a little dark, but you realize, again, things cannot exist. Many things cannot exist and at that rate, and we don't know what if it were cold temperatures, if it were wintertime, something, just think there wouldn't be much heat, and you've got how you would heat. I don't know whether you could get oil to heat or whether you could get, I think the electrical power system would be going through a rough time, and even in terms of just the warmth of the day would not exist with the sun shining. People could freeze to death. You got all kinds of things that could happen whenever you think in terms of cutting back that amount of light through the day. That's a pretty serious judgment right here. Though we don't seem to want to compare it to some of the others, but it is a tremendous judgment. Anybody want to speak on that?
That would affect more than just human activities. That would affect animal activities. That would affect the growth of the plants.
It says here,
You have to
something I
have
read,
light
it says
growth.
crops and animals would die, and you couldn't raise crops. They need daylight, they need sunshine.
I mean, you look up in Alaska when they have all, it stays dark a long time up there. It's pretty cool. When you ain't got no sunshine.
That's part of the cool part of it, there's no doubt.
That's why I'm planning on for Alaska.
That's it.
All right, anybody got a thought there? Anybody got a question on that? All right, let's move into some of the difficult, into the 9th chapter. I tell you what, I just have to confess to you. I love read the Bible and things, but boy, when you get into this 8th and 9th chapter, it's been a difficult thing for me to study the scriptures here. In fact, I finished the 9th chapter here a couple weeks ago studying, and I just quit. I just got kind of frustrated, so I just quit studying. And I got to get back on my studies this week to get into the 10th chapter. I haven't even got the 10th chapter. I've read it and studied it a little bit, but I haven't really got into it because that just, to me, it just kind of consumed my soul to think of the kind of things that will be taking place during the tribulation. It's just something awful. In fact, look at verse 13 here. This is a significant little verse. It says, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of the heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the 3 angels, which are yet to sound." And these are identified as the 3 woes. And the the trumpet, it's associated with the trumpet sounds of the 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpets. In fact, the Bible actually here in Revelation speaks of it in terms of the 3 woes, because if, for instance, verse 12 says, 1 woe is past, behold, there are 2 woes more to come. In other words, it appears that what the scripture is saying here, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till you see these others. These are the real woes. These are the 3 things that are going to be so very, very difficult. Now, these starting here in the 5th trumpet is generally associated with the last part of the tribulation, the last 3.5 years. We don't know exactly the break, but 3.5 years, but I think it's really the idea being that things are just going to get worse and worse on this earth during this period of time. Now, let me give you my theory here. Now, I didn't read this anywhere. This is just my thinking in my studies. That the 3.5 last years are worse than the 3.5 to start with. Now, why is it spoken of as being so much worse? Well, I have a theory that's personally on it. That is to the effect, you remember as we studied the start of the tribulation, there was 144,000 Jews saved and became evangelists, and there were multitudes of people that were saved right after the tribulation started, realizing that evidently this was a judgment of God, and they gave their hearts and lives to God, and many people were saved. As the tribulation period continues, those people, the amount or the number, I should say, of the people being saved, I think greatly diminished. And maybe even went down to 0. In terms, that's just my theory. The idea being, why was it so bad? Because there was going to be such a limited amount of people giving their heart to God. Now, the Bible does speak here. Now, we're going to see that there are few that are left on the earth at this time that have the seal of the Spirit on the forehead. And we're going to see that it's spoken of here, and they're protected. But the actual experience of people being saved, I think, will be so diminished and so down that makes that a very, very dark ending, or last part of tribulation time. I mean, if what we've already studied about in these first 3.5 years of tribulation, if that didn't affect the hearts of the people that were here and turned them to Jesus, I don't see what else can be done. I mean, what we've already read, we've seen these judgments. And if that didn't win them, if that didn't get them to understand that they needed to repent of their sins, then I just don't foresee much here in this. Y'all understand what I'm saying here? The difficulty that is associated with it. Now, when you get into the 9th chapter, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let me read with you. You can follow along. I'll read the 9th chapter. I'm going to read through, all the way through verse 11, because that is the 5th trumpet sound, and the judgment that comes with that trumpet sound. Starting verse 1. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their forehead. Now, that's what I was just speaking of here. That there are still Christians, there are people that have been saved here that have the seal. Verse 5, and to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And the torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and they shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. Boy, listen to this. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared in the battle, and on their heads as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name as Apollyon. And boy, this is what makes things so difficult for people studying the book of Revelation. Whenever you see a description given of these creatures that come up out of the bottomless pit, I mean, if you try to visualize them as is, it's just beyond comprehension how awful, how ugly, how distorting that could possibly be. Now, let's look at these verses and see if I can please y'all ask questions or add something to it, if you will. When the 5th trumpet sounded, he said, I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. Now, when it says fall from heaven, it doesn't mean it's the residing place of God, heaven. It out of the sky is the idea, that it came out of the sky, as it were, and was given the key of the bottomless pit. Now, we already know, and we studied this early in Revelation, that Jesus has the key to heaven and hell. He has the key to everything. But here, this star fell out of the sky, and notice, it takes on human form, or takes on some kind of form, because you don't hand a key to a star. That's what we think is a star. And it has some sort of personality appearance to it in order for them to be able to take the key and open the bottomless pit. Now, I can tell you up front that everybody agrees that this star that fell that got the key was the devil himself. That was the devil himself. That he was given the key to open the bottomless pit. And folks, there's so much about this I don't understand, and you can go back and study so much of this, but all of this goes back, I believe, to the time before the creation of man, when the Bible speaks of the fact that there was a rebellion in heaven against God. and Lucifer and his angels, or Lucifer and those that chose to follow him, were cast out of heaven and came down to this earth. Now the Bible does speak of the fact, let me see, the Bible does speak of the fact that some of these, and can I use the term and you all understand what I'm saying, because this is really what it is. Whenever these angels were cast out of heaven, then they became demons, as it were. They attacked God. They became the demons. And the Bible speaks of the fact that some of these demons, we don't know how they were chosen, maybe out of the fact they were just so bad in their rebellion against God. Some of these were, the Bible says, were actually cast and were actually locked, as it were, into a hell. Let me read this from Jude. Here it is. This is one verse that I chose. It says, and the angels which kept not their first estate, it's talking about these fallen angels, but left their own habitation, they had to leave heaven, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Some of these demons were literally locked up and put in some place which we believe to be, let's just say, hell itself. That they were left there. Some of the demons remained upon the earth, came back to the earth. Folks, let me tell you something. There are demons right here in this room now. Demons exist. These fallen angels, I believe, are the demons that the devil controls. And they are with us. I think one of the understandings is, the devil is everywhere in his and through his demons. Now, God is a spirit, but Satan himself has limitations. He's not everywhere all the time himself, but he has demons that able to attack people and tempt people and do all kinds of terrible things on this earth. We know that. So what I'm getting ready for you to say, and I assume I'll make this kind of a statement: if the demons aren't attacking you, if you don't have some problems in your life, you better check up on your faith, because the demons do attack. I got to go preach in a few minutes. I got to be preaching. So I'm going to preach on things that Christians lose whenever they sin. I mean, it's terrible, but the devil does tempt us, and as Christians we sin, and all the wonderful things we lose whenever we as Christians. But the idea is that demons attacked us here on this earth. But then there's that, can I say, the worst of the lot, that's down, locked into hell itself. The key was given to Satan to unlock, as it were, hell itself. You got that picture there? Now, I don't know how actually this takes place, but this is a symbolism that God gives to John to give to us. That the picture is that in this fifth trumpet sound, that the judgment upon earth becomes the release of demons out of hell itself to attack this earth. Folks, that's something. It talks about the bottomless pit, hell, that evidently the key was given, and I don't pick this up, but later on you'll see again that Jesus has the key. So I mean, it was given to him to unlock, as it were, and given back to, that Jesus took the key back, because later he uses it again. Jesus makes use of it. But it says, out of that bottomless pit, there was smoke that came up, and there was heat, and such as that. It came up out when the door was open. And all of a part of hell itself came upon this earth. Now, I could wish that somebody here could tell me where is hell located. There are all kind of theories that, you know, where hell is at one of the planets. And where is hell? There are all kind of theories, but one of the main theories that's given is that hell is in the center of the earth.
Oh.
You know, we're told by scientists, which that doesn't mean very much to say in the day that science says this, but that the center of the earth is a ball of fire, that it heat right in the center of the earth, that the gases, the heat is something, and the release of some of that is what causes the volcanoes and such as that. Which, you know, it could fit into this fifth trumpet sound, where it was open and these wicked creatures came out of that, and the smoke came out, and, you know, as these angels that had been locked up all of this period of time, these angels, I call them angels because they were angels, but these demons that were locked up all this period of time now are getting their revenge upon the one that put them there, that locked them up. Y'all got this picture now? I'm telling you, it's so gruesome. It got to be.
They could only attack the people that weren't saved.
Right.
Okay.
But it says that they could not attack the people that had the seal of God on their forehead. And again, this is where the judgment of God is coming in. The judgment is upon the lost world. And so these demons that come out, and the first term that's used there is a scorpion, which we don't know a whole lot about scorpions, but the implication very clearly here, and I've heard that, you know, scorpion will sting you, and boy, it is painful and will linger with you a long period of time. It's really a bad sting. So, again, going back to the first century, whenever they would describe pain, I think it rather natural they would say the scorpion. It's the sting of a scorpion, because there was such pain in the bodies of these humans that were not Christians. Now, again, I remind you, we're going into going into the latter part of the tribulation period, and there is such trouble and hurt and pain beyond any reasonable understanding that we could ever have here. That these creatures were not to hurt the trees, the grass, and they were not to hurt Christians, or people that had given their heart to God. Now this is something interesting. And it is given that they should not kill them. They could not kill these non-Christians, but they should torment them. And it mentioned 5 months of torment. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion as he strikes a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them.
That tells me they can't even kill itself.
That's exactly.
That's pretty bad.
That's exactly what it's talking about here. And that's what I emphasize to make. The pain was so intense. You know, I had a discussion this week, I don't remember who I had a discussion with, talking about. The idea of pain can get so bad that even Christians sometimes want to die. Get out of that pain, and whether it could be a legitimate form, I don't know. I do not believe in suicide. I think God is the one that determines that, for sure and certain. But I know there are thoughts about it. When anybody, when the pain gets so intense, you know, like I read, the other day I read a story about this woman got seasick while on a boat, big boat, and she got seasick and she was heaving over the side of the boat, just so sick. I don't really have been seasick. I was
Been
one
there and
time.
done that, don't want to do it again.
I had it one time, and that was nothing. But she was heaving over it, and one of the people that worked on the boat came by and said, "This is gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Nobody ever died of being seasick." And he said, "Don't tell me that. That's the only hope I got. This thing, that I'm gonna die. That's the only relief I can see." Well, what it's saying here, it appears, is that these people are going to be in such intense pain during this period of time that they are going to want to take their own body and will want to commit suicide, but they can't. And when I read it, the bodies will not sink and drown. They try to drown themselves. Can't do it. Said pills to take to kill themselves, poison themselves, will have no effect.
Wow.
It says somehow even bullets and knives will not do their intended job. So the point is that the pain is so intense that people want to die. These non-Christians want to die to get out of this earth at this time, and they cannot do it. Boy, that is, ooh, it just gets to me, I'm telling you, it gets to me.
That just
Think
goes
you
to
don't-
show you how much in control God is.
Amen.
That we don't want to believe it a lot of times, but He is.
He's in control
Shows you how
of
powerful that
everything.
sting is.
That's it, huh?
I tell you, that's something else. All right, and let me, verses 7 on, through 10, so they give a description of the locusts. Now, they still call them locusts. Now, perhaps the reason they use the term locust is because locusts come in swarms. And in some parts of the earth, and even here in the United States, there have been locust swarms that just roll and eat everything in sight. I mean, they kill all the vegetation. Now here, it appears like locusts. There's just going to be a cloud of these locusts. But these locusts are not to eat, it says, the grass and the trees. These are to simply sting and hurt the non-Christians that are on the earth. Now, boy, that's something. Now, let me interlude here, because there's descriptions, and I can't explain all these descriptions that are given here about what the locusts look like. It talks about bodies of horses, crowns on their head, faces of men, hair of women, teeth of lions, breastplates of iron, wings sound like horses going to battle, many horses, the tail has stings. Now, get this. These are demons coming out of hell. Now, I don't know that there's any way that God could put in human terms a description of the awfulness of these demonic angels. So the description is given here. And I'm not exactly sure again, I keep saying that one day we could see a creature like this as it's described here. But what it's saying is these demons, these locusts out of hell are beyond description. But they are demonic out of hell locusts, and so they look terrible, they're going to be awful. They're, you know, it's as if they're representing Satan. They're representing the devil. So they're not, maybe it's in contrast. The Bible speaks of the devil upon this earth as being a light. That the devil looks good upon this earth. He's got himself disguised in such a way. I mean, why do people sin? Well, a lot of sin is so that you can have a lot of fun. Because anything, they're enjoyable things, real enjoyable, people think that's sin. If you really want to have a good time, you got to go somewhere on Saturday night where there's a lot of sinning going on so you can have a good time. Now, he's an angel of light, the Bible speaks of the devil. And here on earth, most sins have a good appearance. Why do you do sin? Because it makes you feel good. Makes you want this. This is something very enjoyable. It's an angel of light that's tempting you to be like him, to do these things. But in contrast to the angel of light that is upon this earth, these are these demonic beings that show the real character, the real personality, the real makeup of a fallen angel. Now, we got thoughts there? Anybody want to say anything? Because if y'all understand what I'm saying here.
And then in that point in time, you know, like you said, so they're not going to touch the Christians. Do you think these people that are being tortured can ask, okay, they got to say, okay, why they ain't touching you? You know, to a Christian, like, why are you not being attacked? Can they witness to these people at this time? Or are they just
seal on the head?
Yeah, I mean, are
Can
they?
we see if you have a seal on the head or not?
Or are they so out of their mind they can't talk, or what? You know?
The seal on the head. But now wait, and I think something else too. That the description that God gives to John here starts off saying that he's got a body like a horse. We're not talking about a locust like this. We're talking about in John's description had the appearance like a horse. He was big. He had the face of a man. He had all of the, even had a breastplate of iron or something on him. And then he had wings and he could fly. And of course they talk about hair of women and teeth, they're like the teeth of a lion. I mean, it's a awful,
Gruesome looking creature.
awful picture to say the least of this preacher that's there. And so if you think in terms of these, and then we get into the 6th chapter, 6th angel sounded just a minute, which, I mean, I don't know if we get to it today, but it talks again about horses in battle and such as that. But I think the idea that we must take out of this, the gruesome description of this creature, I think, points out some things that are awful, but it just won't say how awful. Now, can I go back to some of my own crazy thinking? Could this be a first century description of a nuclear war that also involved tanks, all kinds of war equipment? There's no way that first century person like John could have understood what a tank was. Try to describe what a tank would be like, or like some of the other airplanes even, and the many rockets and such as that. there's no way that this could have been understood by John by any means, and so John wrote down what he saw, but it was a descriptive thing that could help him and help us to understand how awful the tribulation time is.
I don't think he thought it was gonna get to this century before they had a tribulation.
We don't know. He didn't know. Not by any means at all.
That's what I've always, I don't think he thought it was gonna get.
No, in fact, most of your New Testament writers like Paul and all, they didn't.
Before they had.
They thought it was gonna, they thought the second coming of Jesus wasn't gonna be far off. They thought maybe they might still be alive in it. All I can say about that,
That's what I've,
We're-
that's what I've always. thought.
we're 2,000 years closer to it than Paul was,
Amen.
and John was. So we better get ready. 2,000 years have passed. He hadn't come yet, so he could come at any time. But these descriptive terminology is so gruesome. But the tribulation is gruesome. And God wants to give us a picture to help us to understand that, brother, if you haven't got the seal of God on your forehead yet, you better get it done. You need to get it done. You don't need this kind of gruesome response. Whew.
I think, I understand what you're saying, preacher. It's like, back then, they described it, I can see, and this is just my thoughts. You see a hornet's nest in the ground, and my Bible states a shaft. You know, he opens the key to the shaft, like a hornet's nest, and you know what hornets do to you. So that's in that time, okay? And then, but nowadays, like you saying, if I understand that's what you're saying, it's like our government, you know, the aircraft carriers or airplanes have bigger wings than their bodies and shoots bullets, and you know, it could be warfare, like you say. But in John's time, it would be like, because locusts have wings bigger than their bodies, so he describes it like that too. So
Right. Now that's what it says. You talk about things that could definitely. Locusts have wings and they make a lot of noise when they fly. What happens when a jet flies over? So I'm saying all of these things to me personally are very descriptive. Goodbye. I'll see y'all next Sunday.